Well, I can use some help. I don't know. I've had one of those days. The heat didn't work. Well, it was working somewhat, but it was cold. Um, I got my computer fixed and then I messed it up. I wiped out some of the stuff because I thought I was wiping old stuff and I messed. Anyway, it's like I am not feeling peaceful, and the mantra hasn't even helped. It's like ah, and this is unusual for me. I don't usually things don't usually get to me.
I mean, everything's false except yourself. So when things start to go wrong in the illusory world, remain with yourself. I know that's, okay, everybody knows this and this, but it's putting it into practical use in those moments that you're creating inside the bubble of illusion. Everything's false. Only you are true. Remain with yourself, and all these things that are false, they're just going to whirl around you and you'll just sit in the center enjoying and everything's okay. Even remember, Maharaj says there's a disturbance in the five elemental body. Many times I'll tell myself this when there's like a disturbance in the five elemental body. I'll remember Master's words. Oh, this is not affecting me, but there's a disturbance in the five elemental body in this moment. And because it's an elemental body, it can be disturbed as the elements around it are disturbed. And it has nothing to do with the holder of the body. It's just these things are occurring. But everything is false, so I don't need to take the touch of anything. And yes, I say, oh, I have valuable files and this and that, and everything is false, so no worries, just remain with myself. I try to identify myself and use that as an opportunity that everything in the illusory world is stirring. So this is a perfect time to just remain with myself and go deeper in my selfless self.
I had like whenever I have an experience or an insight or whatever, I know it's illusion because it's within this. I mean, as you say, everything is false. Um, Consciousness, awareness, any experience, all knowledge. I know I was reading Ultimate Truth, and Maharaj is saying that. All this money you have, all this spiritual knowledge, it's kind of like fake banknotes.
Take notes, yeah.
Yeah, everything is fake. You hear about the fake news nowadays. So everything, absolutely everything is fake. So basically, it's just the bubble of illusion, as you say, or the circle of ignorance, and then there's the absolute, or there's para Brahman, or there's selfless self, which has nothing to do with any of this. And
again, just knowing yourself in a real sense without all these labels.
Yeah.
This that you are, that you know yourself in a real sense, has been labeled God, Brahman, Atman, Paramatman.
Right.
But you don't need any labels. You just remain with yourself, knowing that everything is false and nothing has anything to do with myself. So this is an opportunity just to remain with myself as self.
Yeah, I had that kind of like a feeling of that, periodically, like since we spoke last, and it's like, it's almost like there's a sentence in the Bhajans, I don't know where it is, where it's like you're up here and you're looking down at all of this down here, that kind of a feeling. And you're in it, but at the same time, either you're there seeing it or witnessing it or whatever, or the knower of it. But even that is, I mean, those kinds of experiences are, like steps, you might say, as Maharaj says. But any experience is false, correct? I mean, no matter, right. Yeah, any experience. But that's just the way it's going to be while we have a body.
Correct.
Yeah.
Even when you know yourself in a real sense, there will still be experiences. Things will come and go on your spontaneous presence. Like we were talking about Trish, all of these things were occurring on spontaneous presence. Without your presence in the body of Trish, you wouldn't experience any of these things. So this experiencer that is experiencing is not yourself. All of this is just occurring, is spontaneously occurring on your spontaneous presence. And these thoughts and all of these feelings and all of this are just layers on that spontaneous presence. That's why once you know yourself in a real sense as that presence, that formless awareness, without words, without anything, then all of this is illusion. Then you can still do what you need to do in the world and take care of your body and all these things, but you absolutely know that I have nothing to do with this world. This is an illusory world. All of these problems that are seemingly disturbing are disturbing someone who is not actually there, a life that I'm not actually living. So why not just enjoy this life that I'm not actually living, that I'm using this form and moving about, and know that the formless presence is myself, and all of this is appearing in the bubble of illusion. And that's it. That's like all the thoughts, all the everything, like Maharaj says, then it's like good dishes are served. Oh, yes, I'd like this. No, I don't like this so much. And that's how you are with thoughts. No thought is impressing. No, nothing is really heavy. I'll give you an example. I think it was last night or the night before. Every so often I go in and check my account and see what's happening. And it was missing like hundreds of dollars. And I looked and I said, it shouldn't be that. And then I thought to myself, okay, did I spend this money, this and that? But literally, I mean, you would think like, oh my God, you lost 100. But immediately it was like I looked at Maharaj's photo and I was like, well, I don't believe I spent it, and it doesn't seem to be there, but I'm not going to be concerned about it. It'll work itself out. I'll either see on the bank statement someplace that I spent the money where I didn't think I did, or it was a mistake and it'll be put back, but there's no concern. And I bowed to the master in that moment, and that was it. And that could be something that in the previous times would be very disturbing. Oh my God, where'd all this money go? What happened? And then a couple of days later, sure enough, I don't know where the hell it went, honestly, but it came back. And then I thanked Master. I was like, this was a test of the spiritual knowledge. You know, something as painful as, wow, you just lost a couple $100.
Correct. Yeah.
Remain with your selfless self. It's illusion. And sure enough, the money came back in. It was like, oh, okay, good. So had I gotten all disturbed and all worked up about all this stuff that wasn't, I'd be in the illusory world getting upset about something that in truth was nothing, and in reality then turned out to be nothing.
Yeah, it's like remembering, was there this account before prior to being this kind of
Exactly. Exactly.
That's what sometimes I do that, when something, hits me out of it from, like broadside or something like that. I mean, like at first, this is a shock, but then, I kind of like, once I get into it a little bit, I say, well, then I just start asking myself, was any of this there prior to being this, basically? Mm-hmm. This experience or that experience, or this feeling or that feeling, or this thought or that thought, or, this person, whatever, it's just basically, like that to me is really, as, like, I know that Maharaj keeps saying it over and over, like, who were you prior to being this, basically, what was there prior to being this? And if that's always kind of like, the direction to go into. And that's what Ranji, told me, he told all of us continuously, practice I don't exist, practice I don't exist. Yeah. And one time when I was leaving Mumbai, he said, you don't exist, the world don't exist, only he exists, which is selfless self. So, just basically, it's like, it's hammering yourself, yourself with the small s out of existence, kind of with the mantra.
Yes.
And the knowledge.
Just dissolving all the illusory concepts.
Yeah.
You believe that you are someone else.
Right.
Rather than, okay, I know myself as this sense of presence. Well, this sense of presence can't be divided. That's why Maharaj says the space in the kitchen and the space in the bathroom and the space in the ashram is just the space. So that space can't be divided. We divide it and label it and all this. So that presence that's everywhere in all things, we divide it and say, this one is Andrew, and this one's Kathleen, and this one's John, and this one's Keith, and this one's Trish. But presence is formless, so it can't be divided. So although it appears that it's in separate forms, it's only one. And then you just know, because see, then I don't have to sit there and say, I know all of this because I just remain with myself. Prior to beingness, there was no forms. There was no nothing. It was a formless, no knowledge, absence of all things state. And now there's appearances of all these things, but all these things are just appearing in that nothing that I am. And that's where you know, like, okay, it's presence. And it's not my presence and your presence and Kathleen's presence. It's presence that is animating and moving and speaking and doing all of this. It's formless and it's moving everything. And take away the presence from any of the forms that you're looking at, and it's just a dead lump of flesh, blood, and nothing. And that's how you know the presence can't separate. So if the presence from Andrew is removed, that presence is presence. It's not Andrew's presence. And if the presence is removed from Kathleen, then she's just a lump of blood, flesh, and bones. And it's not Kathleen's presence, it's presence, the one presence in all things, moving about. And that's why there's no my presence, your presence, or this separate. And that's how Maharaj uses the rooms. The space in the rooms, if you knock down the walls, it's just space. Even with the walls up, the space is space. And that's why everything is false. Because that one presence that's moving this whole world around and animating all this flesh and blood and talking and speaking and all that, it's all false, because that is one formless presence pretending and playing as all of these things and moving about all this stuff, taking the energy to move all these things. Like Maharaj uses the example of electricity. Electricity that's doing the light and the fan and the microwave and the refrigerator. Electricity is just moving all these things, but electricity doesn't know I'm electricity, nor does it think that it's this other thing. It's just doing its thing. Presence is just moving about spontaneously, and all of these forms are just kind of dancing and animated in that you are. But cannot be yourself because you're formless, and these forms are appearing inside that formlessness. But the mistake is that you say, I am this body, I am somebody, because we talked about before, I know myself, suddenly I exist. I didn't know I existed before, but now I exist. And I exist and seemingly in this body form. And Maharaj says, no, you sensed your existence, but you are not body, you were not body, you're not going to remain the body. Body's not your identity. You're the holder of the body. You can sense your existence, this presence that you are, in body form, but you are not body. If at all you want to compare yourself to space or sky. And you're more subtle than space or sky because you're kind of, again, providing the animation, and the subtlety of space and sky is appearing on your spontaneous presence. But it's not my presence, your presence, Andrew, Keith. It's one presence that each one, and when presence leaves Keith, it doesn't affect itself either as presence or presence in any of these other forms. And when presence leaves Andrew, it doesn't affect presence or any of these other forms. It always is just there. It may no longer be playing as Andrew or playing as John, but it is. You are. And that you are is that. Oh, so that I.
Yeah, and the ego doesn't want to accept that, that basically, or that identity, I guess, with the body clings, it resists. it's like as Maharaj says, it's been habituated, since childhood to,
Yes.
it takes a lot of hammering actually. I mean, some people it doesn't take as long as others, I mean, I know that Ramana Maharshi was quick, and I know Jesus at 12 years old, something like that. There are people like that. Yaneshwar, I think, was just a kid. Very beautiful spiritual words and so forth. But for me, it takes a lot. It's been taking hammering, but I do feel like changes. I feel different actually, so I'm very happy about that. It feels like, it's like basically what the masters say. It's true. You stick with it. You do the practice, and it works. Kind of,
Absolutely. The more you practically do it or you practice it, remember the world is projection of your spontaneous presence through the thoughts and ideas and beliefs and concepts. So as you take one step forward, master takes the other step. So the more you impress your reality and dissolve illusion, the more reality will become like your normal kind of seeing, and illusion will just pass much more quickly because you're paying attention to the reality and not the passing illusory things that are kind of layers on the reality.
It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It gets bigger and bigger to get the momentum going, kind of.
That is correct, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The more you impress and convince yourself, I am not body, I was not body, I'm not going to remain the body. I am this formless sense of presence. I'm the knower of this formless sense of presence, and I'm using body to know this. And I know myself in a real sense, therefore all of this is illusion. And you act on that in every moment. Like you said, it is a snowball. It will, your inner dialogue, your selfless self will impress more and more and more. And reality will be impressed, and illusory concepts won't be able to stick anymore. There can't be sticky concepts because you'll be more and more and more in your formlessness, that there's no Andrew with which to have this label stuck to anymore.
Not even an awakened Andrew.
Exactly. Oh yeah, you definitely don't want a spiritually awakened Andrew. An enlightened Andrew. No.
We'd lose it.
It's a contradiction in terms.
Yeah.
You got to keep them in the game talking about this stuff.
Yeah. That's what Ranjit refers to as you open the door to let the goat out.
Yeah.
And the camel comes in.
Yeah.
The only way to get rid of the camel is blow the house out.
Yeah.
Blow the wall to the house out. So, yeah.
Well, and see, that's why mantra, rather than picking different concepts to build, mantra is just erasing these illusory concepts and impressing reality. You move forward with mantra, and as you're moving forward, like we said, take one step, the master takes the next, and it snowballs in this way, continuously impressing reality and no longer impressing body knowledge, sticky concepts. I am this body and this body has to do these things. No, I'm the formless presence. Always. Even when I'm not thinking, like when I'm sitting there and I'm thinking that I'm something other than the formless presence, I'm still the formless presence. I can never not be that.
But sometimes you get triggers like the bank account stuff. It's like, your reality is checking to see, how you're going to respond to that.
Absolutely. The deeper you go into selfless self, the more those types of experiences of testing your spiritual knowledge will occur, and the deeper they'll come. Like the more pressure of body knowledge is, as you're releasing and releasing and releasing, like Maharaj says too with the mantra, the mind flares up. It doesn't want to release. There's a lot of thoughts. There's a lot of things. And as you're impressing this reality and remaining with your formless sense of presence, there will come times that it's pressuring you. Okay, are you going to fall back into the illusory ditch? Or are you going to remain formlessly aware of you? Just, okay, these things are passing. They're passing. and then, use body form. Like I said, I bowed to Maharaj. I said, "Oh, thank you, Maharaj. This was nice, and it came and went, and it's all good." And these are the good things that you're impressing. Like, yes, I'm remaining with my selfless self. Because like Maharaj says, on the deathbed, there shouldn't be like, okay, I'm formless, but what if I'm not? What if I'm really dying? Okay, I trust Master, but, this looks really, really scary. Maybe I should open my Bible or open a Quran or, I don't know. What if I go to hell? Because, any of these concepts of I as something other that can die. You are not body, you were not body, you're not going to remain the body except your selfless self. Nothing is there. And all of these somethings have appeared in the nothing. And that one presence has been playing as Kathleen, as John, as Trish, as Andrew, as Keith. And maybe each one of us sees, okay, there's no longer a John, there's no longer a Kathleen, there's no longer a Keith. But the reality is nothing has changed in presence. Presence has not gained or lost anything. Presence is. Everything else is absolutely false because it's a formed something in the nothing.
You could almost say that things don't even pass because they don't even exist in the first place.
Well, and see, again, remaining with your selfless self, trying as hard not to use mind for anything other than very simple, like mindless tasks, pick up water, drink, put it down. No trying to think or figure it out, because you just want to remain with your selfless self. Remain with that sense of presence. Like Nisargadatta Maharaj says, dive into the I am. Forget about everything else. Just know, and immediately, everything's false. Ramana Maharshi says, blah, blah, blah. Nope, everything's false. Nisargadatta Maharaj said, nope, everything's false. I remain just with myself. I remain with my selfless self. Master has said this, remain with my selfless self. If at all I want to talk to myself, accept my selfless self. There's no God, there's no Brahman, there's no Paramatman, there's no Master. Nothing is there. Everything is false. Formless sense of presence. I'm formless. Form is here, but form is occurring inside of the formlessness. There's just one presence that's animating all this whole activity, this whole play of everything that's going on is just one presence appearing as many things. When one of those things is no more, it's just because this lump of goo went and aged and deteriorated the same as a banana on the counter. After a couple of days, it gets all black and gushy because that is deteriorating. These bodies last longer than that banana, but it's the same thing.
That is funny.
The banana never really was a banana in a sense. At least not.
Well, it was a material 5 elemental thing that was inside of a formless nothing. That the formless presence, the life force, so to speak, for a time made that form and was in that form growing and moving and then picked and, sent to the house and put on the table. And then by natural, just as all 5 elemental things do, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, same sort of thing. It's this 5 elemental body. It started as a lump of goo, the food body that's fed by food and water, that was mistakenly myself because it's the first time I sensed that I exist, and I believed I existed as this body. But then inside this bubble of illusion, I met someone who told me, believing that I'm a separate someone that can get information from someone else, that I am not body, I was not body, I'm not going to remain the body. They told me to go inside. When I went inside, I peeled off this illusory layer, and with that peeling of not being a body, discovered that I cannot be divided or separated in any way, so there's just one. And not even one, because that's it. There's nothing other than, except your selfless self, there's no God, no Brahman, no Paramatman, no Master.
But the banana was actually made of presence. It wasn't really itself. So
Well, again, whoop, everything's false. Remain with myself with self. Remain with
I mean, the banana is
because
false.
these sort of intellectual things, you can get all caught up in intellectually thinking. Well, is the banana in consciousness? Is the banana consciousness? Or how did the five elements get together to create the banana? And then how am I in relation to the banana? Am I consciousness? And is consciousness the banana? And is consciousness and myself in the... No, 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 no. Remain with myself with self. Everything's false. Forget about going down the rabbit hole of mind, ego, intellect, because that, your kind of egoistic sense of self that's trying to survive, so to speak, wants mind, ego, intellect journeys. You know, you can journey for a lifetime thinking that I'm making progress of some sort, but there's nothing there to make progress. And once you know yourself in a real sense, you'll no longer try to make progress, because progress for who? For what?
I don't have to take the banana seriously anymore.
There's not, you'll know that it's just like, okay, this was an example for something that is nothing. And everything is false. Everything is false. Everything. Everything that you see, everything you know, everything you do, all the things you've seen, and everything is false, false, false. Because you know yourself in a real sense. This sense of presence.
The one thing that's the trickiest for me to see as being false is it's not. It's easier to think or figure out that thoughts are false because I've just gone over them so much over the years. But the one thing that it's hard to feel is false is feelings. Feelings are, you know, they're not really rational, but they still seem to be something.
They appear on your spontaneous presence, and they come and go. You know,
there seems to be differences, though. There seems to be real differences in feelings. That's why it's very tricky to see feelings as false. But
feelings for who, though? That's the thing. See, everything is false. You're in the formless sense of presence using body form. Mind, ego, intellect allow you to feel feelings. And again, when there's a disturbance in the five elemental body, you can say, oh, there's depression. Okay, there's a disturbance in the five elemental body, just as if there's a cloudy sky instead of a sunny sky. Or if there's a very sunny sky, you can say, oh, I'm very, very happy, or something like this. It's just a five elemental passing thing. Feelings are only felt as they're your feelings when there's an identification of I am feeling this feeling, and then you use mind, ego, intellect to try to figure out why you're feeling something. But you're formless. All these feelings are occurring on your spontaneous presence. If you were to remove the presence from the body that you're using in this moment, how would you feel? Were there any feelings prior to beingness? No. That means they're absolutely false and illusory, because you need to use this illusory form in order to feel these illusory feelings, and then to try and identify with both as yourself, which you are not.
And feelings are usually related to thoughts. So if thoughts are, you know, just fleeting, so are feelings. But doesn't mean that that it's an appearance, but it has to be seen as it is, rather than avoided. You know, that's the problem you get mixed up in, is if you take a feeling as being significant, then, and if you don't like it, then you're trying to, then you get in a world of trouble when you try to avoid it.
That's why it's really hard to not take feelings seriously.
Well, but then you have to get rid of this I am somebody else who's taking these feelings seriously, and mantra. Remain formlessly aware and know, okay, these feelings, and see, the feelings can come without thoughts. You can be sitting and overwhelmed with sadness suddenly, and that's okay. So, okay, you're overwhelmed with sadness. You can notice it and allow the feeling to pass without having to create a story through mind, ego, intellect of why or why not you may be sad. But the main thing, go ahead.
Not denial, though. See, you get into a slippery slope there, because it's just something that comes and goes, just like thoughts come and go. But it is not a, you make it real when you identify with it. But at the same time, you can't deny it, because that is also a way, that's resistance, which is essentially a way of making it real.
Yeah, no, I mean, you just notice the feeling passing, just like you notice the clouds in the sky. I'm not going to, okay, I might not picnic with the clouds in the sky. So when I'm feeling a feeling, I notice it,
Yeah.
but, and I'm not trying to fight it because there's no I am somebody else there. You know, you're
Yeah.
formless. This is
Yeah, but that,
appearing to you.
that's something you have to actually realize rather than being a mental situation, because you don't say, oh, I've got this feeling, but I know there's nobody here. That's like a workaround. It's like, well, find out who's here and then
Mantra.
find out what that feeling is.
I would just say mantra. And any feelings that are coming up, feelings of fear, feelings of sadness, feelings of anything, mantra. Because with mantra, you'll see that the feelings come and go, and there's no need to like make a big event out of them because
No.
they're not. It's only when you have an identification with an I am somebody do feelings become an event.
Yeah, well, the mantra helps you to see it helps you in the seeing. So it's like a seeing through, because, you're not the doer, you're not the thinker, but there is a seeing that happens. And the seeing, the mantra allows the seeing. I think that's how it works in terms of the broom, sweeping, is that there's this, it allows you to see more deeply what's actually happening and to see the emptiness of it.
And again, there's nothing is actually happening. That's
Yeah.
you just know this. As you remain with your selfless self,
Mm-hmm.
all of these things will appear on your spontaneous presence. This entire form world is in that bubble of illusion. And like Andrew said, prior to beingness, was there this sadness? Prior to beingness, was there this upsetness or whatever? And yeah, you might, boom, fly off all of a sudden. Oh my God, this is so terrible or whatever. Okay, fine. Notice that and then remain with your formless sense of presence. Just don't allow anything to stick. And then the main sticking is I am as I am somebody, rather than just I, just I, just I. There's
Yeah,
nothing to get upset about because there's nothing. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, that has to be really seen rather than understood. It's not something that the mind can comprehend. It's more or less like, I think it's a seeing rather than a understanding, because the mind wants to understand everything, but this is all beyond the mind, where the mind is going to give you some kind of concept, but none of this stuff is figure outable. It's all just arising and arising to know nothing, but it's a seeing rather than a figuring out.
Yeah, and I don't even know that you'd say it just is. I don't know. Spontaneously, there's just the conviction that these things are coming and going and they have no effect. There's nothing, and until that conviction happens, mantra through the experience, and on the other side there will be no experiencer. That's been my experience.
Yeah.
When in India, that started right away, all these different experiences that were happening, and I just trusted and had faith in the mantra. I didn't try to figure it out. I didn't try to think about it or to worry. I didn't even know if I was in danger or not in danger. There wasn't enough thought process to do that. It was just focus on mantra. And those were some traumatic experiences, the food poisoning, throwing up all the whole time and not knowing which end was up, and being driven to the India hospital, and then Maharaj left and I was there and they were putting IV. And all of these things could have impressed feelings of terror or upsetness or something, or worry. But I just focused on mantra. I didn't think about what was happening. I didn't know, okay, maybe I die in India hospital. Those thoughts weren't happening. Those thoughts weren't happening of something's going on with me. Oh no, I hope I'm going to be okay. My focus was 100% on mantra. And as that was impressed deeper and deeper and deeper, and you begin to see people moving around and putting IVs and putting your pillow and coming in and taking blood and all this, but you're not experiencing it. You're just diving deeper and deeper and deeper into your selfless self and into mantra. Then the cab ride late at night, it's pouring down rain, cabs zooming all over the road at night. And the people in the ashram had just said, and I know this was selfless self, again, preparing, are you going to have a terrifying 2.5-hour cab ride to the airport in the rain? Or are you going to do mantra and suddenly, and there you are at the airport. You didn't think about all the disaster that could happen, or worry about the rain, or is the cab driver driving too fast, or any of these, because you're not there, John. Mantra is erasing all of this impression. So there are no feelings, there are no thoughts, there are no nothing, and there's no experiencer on the other side of this experience.
I think that's what the momentum is about. It's basically, like more and more, there's just this breaking of this identification with the thoughts and feelings. It just happens more and more. So basically, it's like watching someone over here have feelings and thoughts, like the neighbor's child, as Maharaj says.
Exactly. Exactly. You literally just walk out of your life. Would be the best, because I can tell you in the ashram, when I was sitting there and mantra, and went and got the haircut and wound up wandering all over India, there was no thought of getting lost. There was no thought of danger. There was no thought of I'm a foreigner and I'm just walking around where it was just, you're literally walking out of the illusory circle, just breaking it, but you're not doing it. Just by concentrating on mantra, it's like, okay, bubble of illusion, and it just pops. And that's it. And then you just keep with mantra and you start to see, I don't need this thought process. I don't need to be thinking about what I'm doing. It's spontaneous actions. I don't need to think about cause and effect or think about this or think about that or how is my progress going spiritually. None of these things. I walk out of my life. The life that I believed I was living, I was not. And now that's done. It's finished. And now it's just formless awareness here. Just I, just I. And it's just spontaneous actions without an actor. Experiences without an experiencer. Just absolute nothingness. And yet, okay, here's this body. But there's no... when you talk about feelings, I can understand from the point of view of a body-mind. If I'm believing I'm a body-mind and I say, oh, if I push feelings away, then I'm repressing them or this or that. But see, you're not that. You're really not a body-mind. Your presence and everything is occurring on that. And if Kathleen is having feelings in that certain body, that is presence having feelings in the form of Kathleen, but it's presence. And when presence stops identifying itself with Kathleen and just remains as presence using this form, then there's nothing like this thoughts and all this sort of stuff. And when there is, and you turn up the heat, that's when Master says, remain with yourself with self, remain with mantra. Good things are happening, bad things are happening, miraculous experiences, negative experiences, but you just remain with yourself with self. And you just keep pushing forward. Walk out of your life in this very moment and just mantra. And things will start to happen. You'll turn up the heat and you just remain with yourself with self. And then it's just, you just literally just unzip Kathleen, unzip Andrew, unzip Keith, unzip Trish, and walk free. You're free anyway, but you're still believing yourself to be limited. But you're not limited. So drop this limited sense of self and remain as yourself.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
Except it takes a long time.
No, but it doesn't, because you're outside of time. Time occurs on your spontaneous presence.
Yeah,
There's no time.
Yeah, there's no time ultimately in the absolute. Yeah.
Well, there's time when you're believing that you're Kathleen in a world, because then you have a point of reference for time and you can see time and how time affects a point of reference in time. But when you're formless and you know yourself in a real sense, then time won't make sense either. Other than somebody says, Kathleen, please be at my house tomorrow at 2:00. Then you look at your watch, you say, oh, I should get ready. Let's go to this place. That's the only way you'll know time. Time as far as the psychological time and what's happening and how many days do I have and all that. Oh, this is, you won't have this. Everything is just spontaneous actions. And I guess the spontaneous actions keep occurring until they don't.
Well, time's up.
Yeah. I mean, basically, time was born, not you. I think Nisargadatta Maharaj talks about that. When the body is born, time is born. And time will expire with this body. But you are not time. Time appeared on your spontaneous presence. You were there to witness time appearing, and you'll be there to witness time disappearing. Both of these things are just appearing on your spontaneous presence. Knowing yourself in a real sense is most important. Forget about the gurus, forget about the books, forget about all this stuff. Concentrate on your selfless self. Concentrate on the concentrator. Remain with your selfless self. Nothing is true, nothing to worry about, nothing to concern myself, nothing to get emotions and all this, or be happy or be sad, or none of these things. Just remain with my selfless self. And impress that so that I can start reflecting the world and knowing that the world is a projection of my spontaneous reflection. It's just a reflection. And if I believe I'm Kathleen, then I'm reflecting a world through the ideas and beliefs of Kathleen. And if I don't believe I'm anything at all, then the reflection is clean and clear. Formlessness speaking with formlessness about formlessness. A good place to stop.
Okay.
Okay, stay warm, guys.
Alrighty.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very beautiful.